Welcome to the Graybeard Chronicles podcast. Your hosts, Brian Halstead and Kevin Harkins, are two gray-bearded patriots who love God, their family and friends, and their country. The Graybeards are here to inspire, inform, and educate you on a myriad of topics they are passionate about. Brian and Kevin have a strong desire to share this with you to help you live your best life. Sit back and enjoy this amazing podcast as the Graybeards pass along the wisdom of the ages.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. I'm Brian Halstead.
And I'm Kevin Harkins.
And Kevin, we're here to pass along some wisdom of the ages. What the heck does that mean?
We're not perfect, but we do have gray beards. And that means we've got some significant life experience, some life lessons, and some perspectives that are worthy of passing along.
Well, I think that sums it up nicely. Let's get to it. Kevin, what's going on, sir? How are you?
Doing great, Brian. How are you tonight?
I am outstanding, thank you.
Speaking of gray beards, I had an experience this week.
Uh-oh, do tell.
Yeah. So I, not all that long ago, but long enough. I was a member of Costco. And I went back this last week to, sort of re-energize my membership because it had been several years.
Right.
And they ended up giving me a new ID card. And, they take a picture and put it on the back of your card. And then they handed me the card and I looked at the picture and I couldn't believe it because everything was all white. And I said to the woman, something wrong with this camera and she just looked at me and didn't do anything except go on to the next person. So
what was the realization for you there?
it was this picture because, when I look at myself, I see. Anyway, enough of that.
Right.
It was just
So it's the eyes that are faulty or?
No, it was the camera. That's what we concluded.
Oh,
Yeah.
It sounded like
Right.
she didn't engage in the
She
conclusion.
didn't, but I could tell that that's what she meant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Oh, that's too funny. He said, "I'm sorry, Santa. What is wrong with your picture?"
not a thing.
Yeah.
How are you? What's going on?
And I'm good.
Okay.
All is well.
All right. I know that you on the topic picked a place far, far away.
I did. It's it is a long way. I guess it is a long way in nautical miles, we'll say, or just in general.
How many nautical miles is it?
Oh, it's at least 10,000.
10,000 nautical miles. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a random
Yeah, that is kind of out there.
pull out of the air number, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Good though.
I have no idea how far away it is. It can't be that far away because there are people that visit it regularly. I mean, it's a popular spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you want to tell me about it?
I do. It's not a, I don't want to mislead, right? So we're actually talking kind of like it's a nice place to be or something. And it's, I don't think it is. I think it's a place that people spend a lot of time and don't really get that much accomplished. And this place is something I learned about from a gentleman by the name of Brian Tracy, who I know you're familiar with.
Yeah.
He's the first person that I heard talk about this particular destination.
Okay.
A number of years ago, and this place is called Someday Isle.
Okay.
Yeah, Someday Isle, and it's a destination that is overpopulated, and people just spend way too much time there.
Yes. Have you been there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I've been there. I can't give you a specific example, but no doubt, I think anybody that tells you they've never been there is really not being honest with themselves.
Right.
And that's okay, right? So, I mean, having been there is fine. And even taking an occasional trip there. I think that's part of the process of manifesting things and so on. That it may start there and then ultimately work its way into a different destination.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if some people, maybe many people, and I'm thinking about myself here, that could visit Someday Isle, on a weekly basis. You'd be thinking about something, especially as you get older. You'd think, oh man, we gotta How many times do you see a friend? We got to get together someday. You don't say someday, but the point is,
Right.
I haven't seen you in a while. We got to get together again. Or you'll say to your wife, "Oh man, we got to do that again."
Yeah.
Or you'll say to a friend that uh, that you've been talking to about going somewhere or doing something with them,
Yeah.
and you say, we'll get there, but very, very often you don't.
Yeah, and I guess that's really kind of the driving force behind me wanting to talk about this subject matter, right?
Okay.
So obviously it's a little bit of play on words, right? So someday Isle, or someday island, if you will, really is that play on words, right? For the common phrase that people say about stuff that they maybe dream about or intend to do at some point. Someday I'll earn enough money, or someday I'll own this, or someday I'll travel here. And um, you know, how important are those things really? And is it productive to put all that stuff out there without actually doing something about it? Right. And that's the whole premise behind what Brian Tracy's talking about, is that this area called Someday Isle is overpopulated with people that have all these great ideas about things that they will never actually accomplish because they don't do anything to further that. They put it out there, and then they come up with a million excuses. That's the subject matter of conversation on Someday Isle, is everybody's sharing each other's excuses on why they didn't accomplish what it was that they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
And my point to the whole thing is, you got to decide whether or not it's important enough to even put it out there. And if it is, then decide if it's important enough to do something about it. So do something about it to make it so, or let it go.
Yeah.
And move on to something that you are going to actually accomplish and do intend on, putting the work in to make it so.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great reminder when you sent the topic this week, because it made me think about how many times I do that.
Yeah.
And I know that I do it, my gosh, probably way more than I realize. And if I don't say it out loud, I certainly think it.
Well, I think it's healthy though, to a degree, right?
Yeah.
Because that's part of dreaming
Yeah.
and having those aspirations and so on. Yeah. So I wouldn't encourage people to quell that completely.
No, no, not at all. But what I started doing, actually, just in the last couple of days, is if I start thinking about something that falls into that category, Someday I'll, I'm actually taking it a couple steps further to go, when are you
Yeah.
going to do that? Let's have a bias for action on this stuff. And if you start to walk down that path and you realize, you know what, that's really not something that I'm actually going to do, then just drop that one and go on to the next one. I also like what you had to say about when you say it out loud and you mean it, and it really is, truly is something that's in you that you want to do, you start to manifest it.
Right.
Which means first you think about it, then you start walking toward whatever it is. And in fact, we were talking about the topic in your personal life,
Right.
before we got on, about that very thing in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very real.
Mhm.
I've seen the whole idea of manifesting things play out in my own life, both with intention, and then in cases where I'd have to back up a little bit and say that they're all with intention.
Right.
Some you might not have realized that you had the intention right then when you said it, and at the same time it had to be there because you had to take steps to make it so.
Right.
So there was some intention in there, but looking back, you're like, yeah, I can remember when, it popped into my mind and I decided that was something that I wanted to pursue, or I wanted to accomplish, or I wanted to have. And then you can, see how that played out, and kind of replay in your mind the things that you did to make it so. And, those are great clues to put in your, little cabinet of tricks, and make sure that you know how to use them again should you need them.
Well said. Couple examples in my own personal life. One is one that I did take action on. Another one I haven't, although I've now started to think about it. this week. But one was when my daughter got old enough and moved out on her own and left and, started her own life, not at home. I said to myself, I, I got to get something, I got to make sure that I do something to make sure I stay in touch with her so that, we just don't drift apart I mean, I know when I left for college and then after college started work and all that, my relationship with my parents, it was just my personal situation,
Right.
ended up really separating. And it wasn't because neither one of us didn't love the other. It just was life. And all of a sudden, months would go by.
Or the choices, it was life based on the choices that you had made.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I gotta do something with that. I gotta do something with that. I gotta do something with that. And finally I did. And we put into place, and we've been doing it for years now. Once a month, come hell or high water, we're doing a father-daughter date. And we've done it for years, and it's wonderful. And that's
very cool.
Yeah, that's an example of I got that one figured out. But anybody who knows me well knows that one of the places I want to visit just fascinates me. I've read a lot about it. I want to go to the Australian outback and visit and just sort of take all of that in. And there's a handful of things I want to do when I'm out there, things that I've read about or seen.
Right.
And on a documentary or whatever, I haven't done it. That is a someday I'll, and I'm tired of saying that. So thank you for picking this topic.
You're certainly welcome. Yeah, I think it's a cool exercise, I think, for all of us to engage in, and just catch yourself. Now that you've got that phrase locked into your head and you've got the visual association with it, someday Isle, this overpopulated place in some, tropic location where lots of people go and never actually accomplish a damn thing. I think you'll be more conscious when you're having those conversations with others and with yourself about things that you intend to set out and do, whether or not you're actually serious. And if you are serious and you're currently occupying someday Isle, then start asking yourself the question, why haven't I done this yet? Or why hasn't this become so yet? And I think, you just flip it back on you, because ultimately the answer to all of those questions is because you haven't done anything or done enough to make it happen.
Absolutely.
Action is what's missing.
Bias for action. Someday I'll start a business. Someday I will hike the Appalachian Trail, or at least part of it. Someday I'll learn how to swim. Someday all those things that you're doing that within your life. Pick one or two and just do it.
Well,
what's a someday I'll that's popped to your mind that you're gonna skin that cat at some point? Do you have one that you're willing to share?
So this one actually has come up again in numerous conversations on the podcast in the last 12 months, I'll say.
Okay.
Right? And so when you asked me the question, the first thing that popped into my mind was learn how to weld.
Yeah.
And you've heard me say that. Folks that are listening and watching, you I know will recall having heard me say that. Yeah, someday I'll learn how to weld. Yeah, so I guess I need to ask myself why hasn't that happened yet? Because I haven't taken the steps to make it so. And so, is it really that important to me? That's a good question.
So me and all the people that listen to this are now going to hold you accountable to that. They're going to say, what are you doing? What steps have you taken?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing I indeed have to do is decide whether or not it is something that is important enough for me to put the work in to get it done.
Okay.
Right. Does it mean that much to me? Is there that strong of a need, or is it just one of those, nice to do things? I kind of, I don't know, romanticize about it, if you will. And at the same time, there are competing priorities out there, and ultimately you decide to put it on the back burner, and that's okay. Just stop telling the story.
Yeah.
Because you're using that time and energy, that mental effort on something that's not going to happen because you're not willing to put the work in to make it so.
Yeah, another good thing that people do to try to make sure that they have a bias for action on these things is this idea of a bucket list. I actually like that idea. List I don't know, you pick 10 or 20 really big, cool things that you want to knock off in your life. I know a number of people who have done this, who not just talk about it, because a lot of people say, oh, it's on the bucket list. I mean, there are many people out there who have actual bucket lists, and they list all of these things they want to do or experience or see or participate in, whatever it is, and they're checking them off.
Yeah.
I love that.
So that's a great point, because ultimately I think the difference is it's a list. Especially if they've actually taken the time to write it down, then they've put in motion the magic of setting a goal, right? So they've aren't just thinking it, they're inking it. And that's pretty cool. So yeah, turn it into a bucket list.
Yep.
And actually make a physical list, not a mental list.
Right. And
because the mental list is a TV show.
Right. That I'm bound.
I think, right?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
It is The Mentalist. Yes. It reminds me of Jim Rohn, who talked a lot about, the things that you remember in life, and the things that are really important to you are the experiences that, resonate with you in a positive way.
Right.
And you have them forever.
Yeah.
And so this bucket list, this idea of someday I'll, putting those things on a list and chipping away at them, it gives you those experiences to relive, which is very mentally healthy. And I've shared this before, but you've probably forgotten when he bought a milkshake for a service attendant at a gas station. Remember that? They don't have those anymore, but they did when we were kids.
I was one of those.
Okay.
A petroleum byproduct transfer engineer was my title.
That you gave yourself. Yeah. So for those of you who are younger, it used to be when you pulled up to a gas station, you never got out of your car. Literally a person or two would jump out and wash your windshield and pump your gas, check your tires, whatever, all that kind of stuff.
If you want to know what that's like, go to New Jersey. They still do it there.
No,
not the same though.
They do in New Jersey, they'll pump your gas.
That's right. Yeah, you don't have the full service treatment anymore.
Right. Anyway, and he just, something about this kid resonated with him, and he drove down the street to DQ or something, bought him a milkshake and brought it back and gave it to him, and made that guy's day. And he's retold that story 1,000 times throughout his life, and how much joy it continued to bring him, that experience. There you go. So
yeah,
someday I'll give yourself those experiences that you can relive.
Yeah. I'd say try this on too, right? So you are, just consider yourself on notice. You have all been served with an eviction notice from Someday Isle. You're allowed to come back every now and then as a part of the creative process. You just can't live here anymore.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
Very good.
So get off the island.
Someday.
Vote yourself off the island. That's even better.
Swim off the island.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
Naked.
No. Somebody will.
No, wait, we should do a podcast on things you shouldn't do naked. No, wait, we've already done that.
Oh, yes, we have. Boy, that was a long time ago. Yeah. Somebody would accuse me of being a wounded sea animal of some sort and want to put me out of my misery.
Or theirs.
Or theirs. Yes. Yes.
Oh man. All right. Well, good conversation.
Absolutely.
Don't be a resident on Someday Isle.
All right.
You are not welcome there. There are no citizenships. There's you cannot be a permanent resident there. Time to go.
Time to go.
Get out.
All right.
All right. It's time for us to go. No matter who you are, where you are, as long as you're not on Someday Isle, make sure between this podcast and the next, you take time to enjoy the ride.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. Please subscribe so you'll receive notification when new episodes are available. To learn more about the Graybeards, visit their website, graybeardchronicles.com.